Dear Sagittarius, some eyes are not watching you because you're glamorous. They're watching because you're real, so real that it makes others uncomfortable, because they can't lie when they are around you. You walk into a room and half-spoken truths collapse mid-sentence. You don't even have to say anything, and yet you shift the atmosphere, and because of that, you've never fully known who's watching you with admiration and who's watching, hoping you'll fall. You've grown used to walking alone. You've even told yourself, maybe no one cares, but dear Sagittarius, there are people who have always been watching from a distance, not with casual eyes, but with an energy that burns, a silent obsession that whispers, I don't know how to be like them. And here's the part that will surprise you. The person you once trusted the most is the very one who's been whispering your name in conversations you were never invited to. They don't say it out loud, they don't admit it, but they've spoken about you with people you would never expect. They've shown your pictures, your smile, your gaze, your body language, all the things you thought no one noticed became points of discussion, carefully examined, broken down, interpreted, and it wasn't just one person. 3 voices, 3 emotions, 3 reactions, but all revolving around one gravitational center, you. One said, she's too unreachable. Another muttered, he makes me feel small. And the third one, silent at first, finally whispered something that sounded like prophecy. There's something about them that makes me curious and afraid, but you don't have to be shocked, because deep in your spirit, you felt all of this, that heavy pressure in your chest when you enter a space. That feeling, like someone's watching, even when you're alone, that sudden silence. When you walk in, none of it was your imagination. Some people didn't want you to know. They were watching, because if you knew, you'd realize just how much power you hold over their thoughts. They've lost control over how much they think about you. You've become the measuring stick. For what they feel they lack, they want to know where you're going, who you're with, how far you've come, not to celebrate you, but to compare. You thought you were just living, but somewhere, someone is using your name to fill the silence in their own life. They're retelling your story, but through their version of you, and in doing so, they're reconstructing your image in the minds of others. You thought they left, but no, they just slipped into the shadows to keep watching. They never really let you go. They never truly forgot. They were waiting for a moment where you might slip, so they could use it as proof. A quiet room suddenly becomes electric when your image is passed from one hand to another. No one speaks out loud, but eyes burn like sparks waiting for a fire. And beneath that fake silence, a current surges, a feeling that's part desire, part discomfort, part fascination, and part envy. You think you're not important, but the truth is, you are the central character in a story they can't stop telling. And that is why you must wake up, not to fight, but to recognize when you truly shine. You don't just light up those who love you. You also reveal the shadows that others tried to keep hidden. The one who said, I see you like family, is the same one studying every post you make. The one who said, I wish you the best, is the one sighing in silence as you rise higher than they ever imagined. The one who gave you that soft goodbye hug is now in a closed room, showing your picture, saying, she's changed, and I don't know what to do with that. Isn't it strange? The moment you start living in your truth, you're no longer allowed peace. Your honesty, your freedom, your natural glow becomes too much for some to handle. But Sagittarius, you've done nothing wrong. You're just living, but you're living fully, and that is what threatens those who have never dared to live at all. So don't shrink, don't dim your light to make others more comfortable. Don't disappear just because they can't process your presence. Keep walking, but walk with awareness. Forgive, but don't repeat. Know this, not everyone beside you is with you, but the ones who truly are will never have to watch you from a distance. They'll walk beside you. And if you're still here listening to these words, then I know this, you didn't arrive here by accident. You were called to remember something important. You are not the victim in someone else's story. You are the cartographer of your own spiritual map. And if something in your heart stirred while listening, leave behind a sign. You don't have to say much. Just one line is enough. I'm ready for the most authentic journey of my life. Because the story doesn't end here. The next chapter is where you finally look back at every gaze that ever followed you and realize who was just watching, who was quietly judging, and who was truly loving you but never said a word. Stay with me until the very end. Because this isn't just a story, it's a quiet movement happening beneath the surface. And you are the center of its vibration. Every time your image shows up in a place you didn't even know about, the energy in the room changes, uneasy, breathless, or quietly mesmerized, as if no one can understand why your light shines the way it does. Some look at you with envy, tightly restrained. Some react as if caught red-handed touching something sacred, and some whisper your name, as if they don't want anyone else to discover the value you carry within. Don't get distracted, because those silent reactions, they reveal far more than any spoken words. They expose a power you don't even try to bring with you, but it shows up anyway, naturally, undeniably. The most astonishing part isn't that they see you, it's how their bodies respond. One shakes from guilt, another trembles with longing, and someone else quivers with an unspoken fear. And among them, there will be one person who simply can't hold it together. When that moment comes, the confession will break free, unexpected, choked with emotion, and strong enough to rewrite everything you once believed about them. And about yourself. Maybe you've wondered why destiny seems to follow you so closely. But the answer is simpler than you think. You carry a light that can't be hidden, a frequency that can't be replicated, a presence that refuses to be erased. You're the kind of person who challenges others without saying a word, and because of that, no one has ever looked at you with neutrality. You've become a silent test for everything they are afraid to face within themselves. In the quiet, they calculate. In the stillness, they observe. In the shadows, they wait for a vulnerable moment or just a chance to confirm that the legends about you were true. Silence before a revelation is always the heaviest, like a storm trapped inside a sealed room. But it won't last, because a name you least expect is about to be spoken, and the echo of that name will strike something deep in your chest. Someone who once called themselves your friend has been carrying your image like a piece of evidence, not to shame you, but to prove something to someone else, or maybe just to themselves. You won't know when it happened, but somewhere in time, they scrolled through your photos, your memories, your private moments you thought had gone to sleep, and your energy woke up again. It passed through their gaze, their comments, their laughter, and the silence that followed. Their motives weren't simple. They were layered, personal, and heavy with feelings never admitted out loud. When three voices rise up in that unseen space, each one carries its own tone, its own vibration. One admits, almost shyly, that you're unforgettable, a light too bright to ignore. Another speaks through clenched envy, dry voice, but eyes on fire. And the third, barely a whisper, but dense with fate, says you were born to do something far beyond their understanding. These aren't just opinions. They are unnamed prophecies, secrets stirring behind every word, a tug of war between admiration and jealousy. They're not just watching you. They're measuring themselves against you. They're trying to figure out how you manage to stand tall in places where they once fell. They see you as living proof of everything they gave up on, and they don't know what to do with that kind of feeling. But as the truth begins to rise, you'll realize something. Every glance, every whisper, every moment when you felt like someone's watching me, none of it was your imagination. Every time the air felt heavy around you, every room that made your chest tighten, was a reaction, a ripple, an invisible chorus of eyes trying to decode the energy you radiate. The truth is, they tried to keep you within reach, but fate pulled you far beyond their grasp. And now, as the illusion starts to crack, as the masks begin to fall, the connection between you and them will never be the same. One of them, the one who once offered you the warmest smile, will soon reveal their truth. A confession, raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. What they feel is a storm, a mix of fear, awe, and something deeper than words. They never thought they'd be touched by you. But you did, not by effort, not by strategy, but simply by showing up, by being you. Even the image of you, lingering in their memory, is enough to make them tremble. And do you know, the one who showed your picture to someone else is no longer able to contain it. It's no longer just curiosity. It's obsession, no longer just an old story, but a burning need to be validated, to know that you were real, that their feelings weren't imagined, that they weren't the only one awakened by you. You did nothing wrong. You simply walked in the direction of your light, and for them, that was too much to bear. She shared your image with others, not to seek permission, but to seek confirmation of what she was feeling. Your presence stirred something inside her, something she believed had long since died. So stay, because when that moment arrives, when she speaks her truth, everything you thought you understood about your relationship with her will change forever. Your feelings were never wrong. Your intuition was never fuzzy. Your sensitivity is the gift the universe gave you, a divine GPS, pointing you in the right direction. And yes, you must stay alert to the motives wrapped in friendly smiles. Do not move yet, because this pull you feel, this magnetic tension, it's happening for a reason. They're drawn to you because you're rare, because you carry something that can't be learned in books. They're watching you not because you're a threat, but because you're a reminder. A living reminder that they once believed in something deeper than this world. They're coming closer, trembling, carrying words that have never been spoken. And when those words finally break free, your life will never be the same. You'll see clearly, not everyone who looks at you sees you, and not everyone who stood beside you truly wanted to see you happy. The one you once thought was harmless is the very one holding the final key. The key to the last. And when everything is finally revealed, you will be standing there not as a victim, but as someone who made it through and still held on to your truth. If you're still here, leave a sign for the universe. One line: I'm ready to step into my truth. And if you wish, I'll tell you the next part of the story. The part where your light is not just seen, but honored, because that part is waiting for you and only you. Do not move. Because the moment of unveiling is unfolding. The one you trusted most, the one whose smile once made you feel safe, the one you shared your most sacred gaze with, is also the one who carried your image into someone else's world. Not to speak of you with reverence, but to test your light under the eyes of others. They smiled to your face, as if nothing had changed. But behind you, they waited quietly to watch the reactions, to see what others would say. When your presence shook the room, and when your name was spoken, the voices that rose weren't casual greetings. They were waves of uncontrollable energy. One said, "She's impossible to forget, like a soul you can't replace." Another whispered, "I can't stand how the universe favors her." And the last, even she was surprised when she heard herself say it aloud, "She's marked by something far greater than all of us." That's not a compliment, that's a frequency. That's fate speaking through them. Now, imagine that moment when the one who brought your image in, thinking they were just telling a story, falls silent. As those words land, that's when they realize you weren't just someone who passed through their life. You were a sign from the universe to awaken something inside them. And when you turned away, it wasn't out of anger. It was because the silence that followed spoke louder than any apology ever could. They didn't just observe you, they studied you. Every movement, every glance, every decision, every time you walked away, it was all noted, stored, analyzed, as if you were a code they had to crack at any cost. And when they finally admit just how closely they've been watching you, your heart will beat differently, because you'll understand this was never simple hate. This was admiration, twisted by fear, love, buried beneath pride, a transformation triggered by your very existence. This is the turning point, the place where destiny stops whispering and begins to speak. Those eyes that once made you second guess, those feelings of unease that kept you up at night, those dreams where you felt watched, they all lead back to a source you never imagined. That person, the one you trusted, is about to step out of the shadows, shaking, caught between guilt and the truth rising within them. They never thought their actions would find their way back to you, but truth doesn't need permission. It finds its way. Always stay with me, because once their name is spoken, there's no going back. The final mask will fall. Everything you felt, the lingering stares, the awkward smiles, the heavy air when you walked in a room, they were real. You weren't paranoid. You weren't overthinking. You were sensitive, and that sensitivity was the compass that brought you here. When you felt judged, measured, compared, you were right. But what you didn't know was that their goal wasn't to expose you. It was to understand you, to confirm that you are real, that the brilliance of your light isn't an illusion, that they weren't the only ones who saw it. They carried your image, not out of spite, but because they couldn't carry the weight of that feeling. Alone, 3 voices in that room, not random. One declared, "She cannot be forgotten." Another trembled, "She terrifies me." And the last, with a voice like thunder, said, "She was chosen, set apart, written on the very first page of fate." And now, the one behind it all, is shaking they never imagined. Their confession would unravel the timeline, but it has, and it can't be stopped. When they look at you now, it's not envy, it's reverence, it's silent love. It's a longing that words can't hold. Don't move, because the veil is lifting. And when the confession is finally spoken, everything you once believed about them will change forever. And then your name was spoken, not by someone you expected, not by the one you had imagined holding the final piece of your story, but by the one you once considered ordinary. Someone who entered your life like a stop on the road, never meant to stay, never meant to carry weight. And yet here they are, stepping into the light. They do not deny it anymore. The truth they hold in their hands, it will shake something in you, not because you love them, but because they know you too well. They've watched silently as your light grew, and only now do you realize. You've sent your light farther than you ever imagined. You woke something in someone, something so powerful that they could no longer stay in the shadows. They had to become a witness to your transformation. Remember those moments? That quiet sting in your chest when someone mentioned your name. That chill down your spine when you walked into a room where you were just spoken about. Strange laughter. The silent stares, the tension with no clear source. Now you know, those were not coincidences, they were signals. Destiny has been weaving this thread quietly, and now you've arrived. At the moment where truth no longer waits for permission to appear. So if you are still here, if you followed this story to its final word, I invite you, write one line. A confirmation to yourself, to the universe, and to all those eyes that have watched you in silence. I have seen the truth, and I am ready to live in the light of who I am. Because this isn't an ending, this is a threshold. And you are the one holding the key. Don't skip what comes next. Every piece clicks into the one before it like the cogs of a sacred machine. And the image they form, the one they have been building quietly all this time, is about to become clear. A mystical portrait, long hidden in shadows, now finally lit enough to be seen. You. Everything that once felt vague, every feeling you had but couldn't name, is beginning to take form. So now listen, not just with your ears, but with the rivers in your blood. Like someone hearing the heartbeat of their own soul for the very first time. Wherever you go, the room goes silent. Not because you disrupt it, but because your presence carries a frequency that makes untruths tremble. It's not in your head. It's the echo of you, the confirmation from the unseen that you carry something that cannot be ignored. Your light shifts the very atmosphere, like a flame quietly spreading in a room that thought itself long cold. Some will turn away when they see you, not in rejection, but because in your eyes they see all that they've tried to bury, even from themselves. But even when they turn, they'll look back, they'll speak. They'll whisper your name like an incantation that refuses to burn out. They'll pass your image from one voice to another, as if holding a charm they can't admit to needing. Stay with me here, beloved, because another door in the sacred corridor has opened. The one you called friend, the one you trusted, the one who made you feel safe, they went farther than you thought. Far enough to trace each footprint you left in the sands of fate. It wasn't enough to share your photos. They carried your laughter, your silence, your gaze, into rooms you never sat in, just to see how the world would react to the sound of your name. And in those rooms, as I warned you, 3 voices rose like 3 bells. One in astonishment, one in jealousy, one in reverence too deep for language. That wasn't a conversation. That was a trial with no judge, a prophecy with no altar. And yet, it was a prophecy. You may wonder why so much noise has gathered around someone who only tried to stay true to their own path. But the answer is both simpler and more sacred than it seems. Your energy never asked for permission to exist. It entered where light was needed. And when light arrives, all that was hidden in darkness must choose to heal or to resist. That's why some crave you while others fear you. Some reach toward you, others build walls, but they won't succeed, because light, when born of truth, doesn't need doors to pass through stone. Still, there is something you must know. There is a rhythm, a pulse, a sacred timeline already in motion. And you, right now, are walking straight into its center. In the privacy of rooms you've never entered, away from public eyes, the ones speaking about you are arriving at an unshakable truth. You cannot be reduced to an opinion. Every label they try to place on you only ends up describing themselves. And that is when the shift happens. The silence, the breath that catches in the throat, the vibration of a new belief, soft but undeniable. The one who began this, the one you once trusted, falls into stillness as the verdict lands. Not out of surprise, but because for the first time they felt what they had buried. That what they feel for you never lived inside the safety they built for themselves. Don't leave yet, the layers of this sacred tapestry are still unraveling. At first, they said you were unforgettable, and they didn't mean it metaphorically. They said when you walked into a space, time seemed to pause and make way. Then came the envy, raw and unfiltered. I can't stand how life favors them. But the truth is, what they can't stand isn't your luck. It's the fact that you're living proof that light exists. And someone somewhere is living inside of it every single day. The last sentence rang out like a bronze bell. You are marked by something greater than all of us. And when that bell tolls, no soul can pretend they didn't hear it. You may ask, if all of this is happening while I'm not even in the room, what am I supposed to do? Let me answer you not as someone reading a script, but as someone who has walked through soul winters of their own. You don't need an explanation, you just need to stand firm. The ones who watch you do so because their inner compass is pulled toward the direction you're heading. The ones who resist you do so because they're testing the strength of a bridge they secretly hope they can walk across. When they truly look at your light, they see themselves reflected, and they'll be forced to choose to shed the mask or keep hiding for just a while longer. And now we move forward. From here, the story is no longer a rumor, it's a pilgrimage. Someone you once trusted, leaned on, shared secrets with will rise, not out of guilt, not out of weakness, but because truth, once matured, cannot be suppressed. You will see it in their eyes, a glance you once ignored, now carrying a meaning heavier than all the words ever spoken. You'll know they can't look away, not out of control, but because something inside them has stirred. They're searching for something outside themselves, because inside they're overwhelmed with what they've yet to confront. And their confession, it won't be a spectacle. It won't be a speech. It will be a trembling breath, the kind that escapes a soul no longer able to bear the weight of silence. There will be a moment, a sentence. I have to tell you this, not to possess you, but to free themselves. And in that instant, you will remember the quiet pauses, the conversations that went still when you entered, the messages forwarded without context. And finally, you will understand. They weren't trying to hide the truth, they were reacting to the truth your presence unearthed. This is not an accusation, it is a mirror reflecting an unspoken longing. I am not here to announce a tragedy, I am here to unfold a truth. This confession carries no hatred, it carries a love never voiced, a quiet reverence, a fragile desire to protect. It is winter whispering to the sun, not knowing whether to open or to shield. And so they sought opinions, waited for reactions, begged for confirmation. But now they'll have to listen to the sound of their own heart where the answers always lived. You may wonder, what about the others? What will they do? Some will look down, some will blame, some will disguise admiration as criticism. But you don't look away. Listen to the ones who tremble sincerely. Because trembling, when honest, is the first sign of awakening. And if you've heard me this far, if your soul recognizes these words, just leave a small affirmation. I choose to remain in my light. Because what comes next won't arrive for everyone, only for those who are ready, like you, Sagittarius. And in that same moment, they will hear you not through your voice, but through your heartbeat, through your calm, through your unwavering gaze. As if you were keeping time for a universe that's been waiting for you all along. This is the ending of an old house, a place once filled with expectations, wounds, and silent watchers. Anyone who wishes to enter the new one must do so with reverence. That, my beloved, will be the greatest lesson. But before we walk through that final gate, let's return to the room where they are still speaking your name, with the exactness of the present moment. When the final confession is spoken, 3 responses will ripple like dominoes. First, a sigh of relief fills the air, as if even the oxygen finally exhales, and for the first time in a long while, your lungs are filled completely. Then the invisible chairs rearrange themselves. Each link in the old chain repositions, adjusting its height, its distance. What once was forced will collapse under its own weight. And in the center, a space opens. Not a loss, but a space that fate had saved from the beginning just for you. That space, Sagittarius, isn't a hollow promise. It's a precise coordinate in your soul's timeline, in your heart, in your system of choices. You'll recognize it not because it's loud, not because it rushes you, but because it's quiet, steady, clear. And you'll know the right path never needs to force itself to be believed. Maybe you're still waiting for names, for dates, for irrefutable proof. But sometimes silence is the loudest data of all. There were moments, ones you still don't dare name, but your heart already knew. The pressure in your chest, the broken laugh. A photo passed around without your consent. 3 judgments repeated like the world trying to explain your uniqueness. All of it was coded language, waiting for a heart mature enough to listen. And now you've become that heart, not because you changed overnight, but because you walked through rooms of trial with astonishing patience. You learned to say yes without being naive and no without being cruel. Let me say this too, as someone who's watched over you with love unbound but deeply respectful. There will come a moment when every path, the one you walked, the one they spoke about, and the one you've kept sacred, all converge. And at that point, you will hear a sentence, not shouted, not dramatic, but echoing like scripture down the hallways of destiny. I can't stop looking at you. Don't underestimate it. Don't inflate it. Just receive it as it is, because behind that sentence is insomnia and waiting and feelings never named and a truth that no longer wants to hide. With that key, the door opens. And when it does, you'll finally see. Being seen was never judgment, it was confirmation. Confirmation of a power the world hasn't yet learned how to honor. Your presence is not a threat to tradition. It is an invitation to maturity. A light that forces ambiguity to redefine itself. A whisper that says, true love doesn't need to hide to survive. And for the first time, you can look at them without a mask, without a role, without armor. There might still be echoes, some lingering sting from the times you were exposed in strange conversations, but now you can let it pass without drama, because you know it was real. But it was a bridge, and you crossed it without losing your way. Dignity doesn't lie in never being tested. It lies in not losing your calm when you are. And if one day that trembling hand reaches for you, asking for forgiveness for what they never dared to say before, you will be able to choose without carrying bitterness. If you say yes, it will be honesty. If you say no, it will be clarity. Either way, the truth will remain. Before we leave this space, let us remember the 3 sentences that destiny once placed on other people's lips about you. First, that you are unforgettable. Second, that your light scared them because it revealed their own. And third, that you have been chosen, written in ink that time cannot erase. And none of this requires you to become proud. It only asks you to be grateful. Grateful for the light that stood by you even when no one understood you. Grateful that life chose you even when you questioned why things had to be so hard. And that very conscience will be your weapon against those who, out of fear, try to lock away what was never meant to be contained. Now that we're standing at the edge of a decision, I will give you the purest guidance I can offer. Don't rush to name anyone. Let each person reveal themselves through their actions. Don't demand confession. True love never waits for an invitation. Don't run. Those who once claimed to care for your innocence have already exposed their shadows. All you need to do now is set the table again, not for them, but for yourself. Sit there as a grown Sagittarius, whole, unapologetic, no longer carrying resentment on your skin. And when they come, because they will come, they won't find the person they used to imagine. They will meet you in your true form, where nothing has to be hidden anymore. And in that moment, the real conversation begins. There will be no need to speak just to prove you're real. They will look into your eyes and know whether they're ready to cross the old threshold, or whether they still need to watch from a distance. And you, brave soul who has walked this nameless journey, will no longer fear any answer. Not because you've become numb, but because you've learned something that no ordinary afternoon could ever teach. That love, if it is real, will never ask you to abandon your path just to soothe someone else's doubts. That destiny, when it arrives at the right time, will never demand a price your soul cannot pay. So now let's look toward the end, but not as a closing, rather, as a door swinging wide open. A bigger door, a kinder door, a brighter door, where the name you least expected finally speaks the truth it's been hiding in confusion for far too long. It will whisper the words you once longed to hear, but no longer need to keep breathing. It will say, I can't stop looking at you. It will confess that it searched everywhere for answers outside, while inside something unnamed was burning. It will admit that your image, your voice, your way of being, shook the very foundation it once believed was unshakable. And you will listen to all of this, not with judgment, not with defense, but with a heart at peace, because you understand. Love born of truth does not need to be clung to. It only needs to be received or released from whatever place your soul feels most aligned. And as I told you from the start, there will be a realignment. What once was a broken friendship may be reborn, but not in the same shape. It may become a true friendship, honest, unforced, or it may open into a different form of connection, one both of you have felt but never dared name. What matters most is not the label. It is the sincerity in the way you both look at each other once the fog has lifted. From that point forward, there will be no more whispers behind your back, no more hidden glances, no more photos passed around in the dark, no more judgments wrapped in concern. Instead, there will be a voice acknowledged, a presence no longer concealed, a decision no longer shaped by the need to please others. If you've made it here with me, then you've already seen what you needed to see and felt what you needed to feel. The world around you has finished its role as the learning mirror. The eyes that once watched you have finally learned one sacred truth: that light cannot be negotiated behind closed doors, and your worth does not depend on the approval of any room. Now, don't rush. Don't let urgency drive you. If you say yes, let it be joyful. If you say no, let it be peaceful. If you choose to wait, know that what is meant for you will not disappear because of delay. The thread has been tied. The fabric has been reinforced. And fate has never placed you at the center of these storylines to humiliate you, but to awaken you. To let you finally see yourself in your clearest, most complete form, no longer distorted by other people's gazes. That now has been revealed. And what comes next is a new life, clear, open, but deeply challenging. Only souls marked by greatness are asked to live there with a burning humility and a sacred respect for themselves and everything around them. If anything I just said has reached you, if it brought you peace, if it awakened something in you that you thought you'd lost, then I invite you to leave a simple affirmation. Just one line: I am ready to move forward with my own light. And if you feel this journey holds meaning, you can subscribe, so that when destiny calls your name again, I'll be here with you once more.